All right, hello and welcome back to online English class, Honors English 4 and AP Literature students. I hope you guys are doing well today. Today I'm going to be virtually passing out the test to you and explaining the directions as quickly as I possibly can, okay? So today is Thursday, April 9th, and you need to be working on your Unit 5 test today and turning it in before you go to bed today, okay? To reiterate some of these basic instructions, make sure you open up the correct attachment. Make sure you create your own Word document that is labeled and formatted clearly and correctly, and make sure that you label the subject line of your email correctly whenever you turn your test in. All right, so open up the attachment that is appropriate for your class. And right now, all right, if you are not ready to take the test, pause the video, don't watch any further. If you're ready to take the test, go ahead and take a look at the instructions of the test with me now. All right, so if you are in the AP class, your file should be called the 12E Unit 5 Test AP 2020. All right, your first prompt is the poetic analysis prompt. It is an attached prompt that is from the 2016 exam. Your essay needs to feature a clear thesis statement, body paragraphs that offer logically organized textual evidence and commentary to support your claim. And obviously, you will be rewarded on that sophistication level of the rubric for displaying a deep knowledge of the poetic elements we have discussed in the unit and developing a nuanced interpretation of the poem. Okay, so the poem is called The Juggler by one of my favorite poets, Richard Wilbur, published in 1949. And your task is to write an essay in which you analyze Wilbur's uses of poetic devices to develop the significance of the speaker's description of the juggler. All right, so I will let you think through what precisely your thesis needs to look like in response to this prompt. Okay, so make sure you think through that carefully. Then you need to move on to your short responses. Notice, guys, all right? I am very afraid that some of you will overwrite this, okay, and it will take eons of your time, all right? I am not asking you to analyze the significance of these poetic elements. I am simply asking you to identify what is at work in specific areas of the poem. All right. I want you to interpret and analyze up here. These short responses, I'm just evaluating your basic knowledge of these devices. Okay. So you do not need to analyze them, or else we'll be here all day. Okay. These would turn into page-long essays, no doubt, or at least really big developed paragraphs. They need to be answered concisely, precisely. Expository prose, answer exactly what the question asks you. What kind of figurative language does Dickinson use in the first stanza of My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun? Read the first stanza of My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun. Explain the kind of figurative language at work in the text. All right. You could evidence your response by pointing to areas of the text that are actually that are deploying that kind of figure of speech, but you do not need to analyze its meaning or interpret its meaning. Okay. Same thing with complex tone. All right. Form and structure. In My Papa's Waltz, consider stanzas, meter, rhyme scheme. And then, all right, the sounds used alliteratively in the final stanza of This Is Just to Say, and the implicit allusion at work there. And then finally, William Carlos Williams' use of pun in the title, This Is Just to Say. Okay, so if you are in the Honors English 4 class, all right, your poetic analysis prompt is a little bit different. Okay, like the AP students, you need to have an interpretive thesis statement, body paragraphs that offer logically organized textual evidence and commentary. And you too will be rewarded for displaying a deep knowledge of the poetic elements that we have discussed throughout the unit, including voice, diction, imagery, figurative language, sound devices, and structure. Your first prompt is about God's grandeur. Okay, so if you want to write about God's grandeur, you can turn to page 546 and write in response to the following prompt. Write an essay that analyzes how Hopkins uses poetic devices to illustrate the speaker's perspective of God. Okay, so very basic, very straightforward kind of interpretive prompt here. I need you to develop a thesis about the speaker's perspective of God and then connect the ways in which Hopkins uses poetic devices in order to develop this kind of theology of the speaker. All right. or this theological reflection on the part of the speaker as he thinks about the God that he worships. All right. Second option, after close reading the poem Love Calls Us to the Things of This World by Richard Wilbur, write an essay that analyzes how the poem uses poetic style to illustrate the speaker's complex response to daybreak. Complex just means that it is inherently nuanced, that it isn't just one thing. Okay, so the structure of that poem speaks to that and illustrates that in ways that we discussed in class. Both of these poems, both of these prompts should be pretty straightforward kinds of questions that you can answer directly and then evidence your answer with text and then explain and comment on that throughout the course of your essay. Okay, short responses, same for you. They're different prompts, but you just make sure you're reading through them. Make sure that you are answering concisely and precisely, and make sure that you are not using any outside resources aside from your brain and the text of the poem. Okay? So good luck with this, and make sure that you submit this before you go to bed tonight, which is Thursday, April 9th. All right, have a good day.